Hey guys, welcome back. So today I wanted to show you guys an inspo look that this client brought in for me to do today. It's a very simple but blinged out set with 3D flowers. It is ombre, so you guys can see how I did that and what the outcome turned out to be. Right now I'm going in with a fine sanding band and I'm removing the shine off of her natural nail bed so we won't get any lifting throughout our application process. When doing this process, you want to focus mainly around the cuticle area because that's where majority of our lifting comes from. So when doing this process, you also want to make sure your sanding band is fine and your speed is as low as possible. You don't want to apply too much pressure on your client's natural nail bed so that way you're not damaging them. Now I'm going to dust off the excess dust and I'm going to go in with my nail tips. These nail tips are from Cheyenne Nails. I will link them down below. I used to use these when they didn't have any extra long no C-curve tips. And I ended up using these at the time. They still work perfectly fine. I just don't like how wide they are and how much shaping I have to do afterwards. So I ended up running out of my other nail tips, so this is why I'm using these, but these are not my go-to tips. But I am going to fit the tips sidewall to sidewall, and I want to make sure they fit perfectly fine. I don't want them too small nor too big, but if you can't find a size that matches perfectly, then you can go with the next size up and then just shape as you go. So now I'm going to cut the tips to my client's desired length. I like to go a little longer than what they asked for, only because I do shape a lot towards the process of doing nails. So that's why I like to go longer, because they will end up getting shorter. And I like to inform my clients towards the end, if you want them shorter, just let me know. But I'm going to line them cuticle to cuticle just to see if each nail are the same length. If they're not, then of course you're going to go in and match them. So now I'm going to go in with my 100 grit hand file, and I'm pretty much just going to reshape the nail and get that tapered square that I'm looking for. And I'm also going to hold down on my client's finger just so I'm not hurting them. Alright, so now I'm going to go in with my fine sanding band and I'm going to blend the tips in with my client's natural nail bed so that way we can have a smooth application when it comes down to laying our acrylic. Also, you want to make sure your speed is as low as possible and you're not sticking to one area. You want to move around so you're not burning your client's natural nail bed. So again, I'm going to dust off the excess dust because we don't want any lint or dust when applying our acrylic, so we won't get any lifting. And then I'm going to go in with my dehydrator and my primer so our acrylic can adhere to the natural nail bed. Alright, so now I'm going to go in with my white or whatever color you choose to use for your ombre. I'm going to lay it just where I laid my tips, and then I'm going to pat it into place, and then I'm going to gently drag it down. For Valentino, I know for me, it sets pretty fast, so you want to move pretty fast. So for beginners, you want to move fast when doing this, or it's going to dry up and it's going to be very bumpy for you. But for me, I like fast setting acrylics only because with time I did move a lot faster, so I prefer Valentino personally. But I'm going to again set it where I laid my tips, and then I'm going to center it in the middle and then gently drag everything down. You don't want to be too heavy when dragging it down because you don't want to remove too much product off. All right, so now I'm going to go in with my nude, and I'm going to lay it just above where I laid my white, and then I'm going to pat it into place and then gently drag the tip down. You don't want to drag the whole thing down, just the tip. And then I'm going to clean off the sides to remove any acrylic that might have gotten onto the skin, and then I'm going to blend as much as possible so I can have that perfect ombre effect. And then I'm going to lay that second bead just above where I laid that first bead of nude, and then I'm going to gently push it upwards, not too much into the cuticle, but enough. And then I'm going to gently pat it down to get that perfect ombre effect, and then I'm going to clean off the sides around the cuticle area just so we won't get any lifting. So now I'm going to encapsulate my ombre with clear acrylic. So when we go into e-file, we won't remove that ombre effect we have going on. And I'm going to apply that clear acrylic just above where the pink and the white meets, and then I'm going to gently brush it downwards, and I'm going to tilt my client's fingers to the side just to see if there's any lumpy areas that need to be smoothed out. And then I'm going to go in with a second bead, and I'm going to apply that just below the cuticle area, and then I'm going to gently brush it down. If you feel like there's any more areas that need to be filled in, then you can go in and place a small bead of clear acrylic onto that area and smooth it out. All right, so now I'm going to go in with my 100 grit hand file, and I'm pretty much just going to reshape the nail, and I'm going to remove any excess acrylic that might have gotten onto the skin. And I also like to go underneath the nail with my hand file just to remove any excess acrylic that might have gotten underneath. All right, so now I'm going to go in with my fine sanding band, and I'm going to smooth out the nail. And I like to tilt my client's fingers to the side just to see any areas that might have been bumpy. I like to go over and smooth that out, and I like to go around the cuticle area just to remove any excess acrylic that might have gotten onto the skin, because that will create lifting as well if you don't remove that. All right, so now I'm going to go in with my buffer and I'm going to buff out any specks that might have gotten left behind. So when it comes down to laying our gel top coat, we can have a smooth application. All right, so now I'm going to go in with this bit just to remove any excess acrylic that might have gotten underneath the nail, because I know for me personally, I hate having acrylic underneath my nail because I'm a picker. And once I start picking, I start messing up the whole nail. So I like to remove it just so my clients don't have to worry about that later. Now I'm going to go in with that 100 grit hand file again, and I'm going to remove any excess acrylic that I removed underneath, and I'm going to reshape the nail. Alright, so now I'm going to go in with my Zulate glue and I'm going to add my stone placements. This is pretty much self-explanatory. I feel like you guys can watch this without me having to explain. But right here, I'm just lining them up just so my flowers are as even as possible. All right, so I can't really explain this process too well, only because I am still learning how to do 3D. But pretty much I like to dry out my brush as much as possible, and then I like to pick up a small bead. And with every bead that you pick up, you want to make sure they're the same size. So when doing this process, I like to spread it out as much as possible just to get that petal look that I'm going for. And then once I'm satisfied, I like to move on to the next finger just to let that finger dry up before applying the next bead that's going next to it. All right, so now I'm going to go in with my gel top coat, and I'm going to apply a thin layer onto the nail. A little goes a long way. You don't have to apply too much, but sometimes I do make that mistake of adding too much and the gel top coat rolls over to the side. So towards the end, I'll just wipe off the sides just so I don't lose my shape before curing it under the lamp for 60 seconds. All right, so once we're done with that, I'm going to go in with some cuticle oil, and that is it for this video. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a finished look only because this client refused to let me take any videos or pictures. So towards the end, I will be showing you guys an inspo pic of what the set was supposed to look like, but that's another story for another day. But I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Please like, comment, subscribe, turn on your post notification bells on so you guys can get notified whenever I upload, and I'll see you guys in the next one.